welcome to the Raising the Standard Show. I'm Dr. Andrea Ramirez, and I am thrilled to have Dr. Gus Reyes with me co-hosting.
Great to be here today.
Love having you. You're the director of the Christian Life Commission, and
for Texas Baptist, yes.
For Texas Baptist, and also it's a joy and an honor to get to call you my dad. And
there you go. I'll call you my daughter.
Well, there you go, biologically as well. So, but I'm just thrilled that he's here with us, and just enjoy doing our father-daughter co-hosting together.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Would love to hear about today's theme and what we're talking about, so if you'd share that with us.
This is a huge day today because there are those that are watching and are thinking, how am I going to get over this challenge? How am I going to overcome this obstacle in my life? How am I going to reach the goals that God has for me? It just seems like it gets so overwhelming. Well, today you're going to get some help, and you're going to get some hope, and you're going to be encouraged because we have a real overcomer who's going to be sharing his story about how God has helped him overcome obstacles to reach his academic goals.
That's right. We have Mateo Magdaleno with us, and we're going to hear more from him later on. But you know, we've had him on the show before, and his content was so rich, we've said we have to have him back. Right. I mean, God has given him such a message, and we know that it's one of overcoming. It's an encouragement. And so if you're feeling discouraged today, we want you to know this show is for you. God is providing you with an encouragement, with some tips. Maybe you're a parent and you've got a student who's feeling discouraged or is disconnecting. This is the show for you. So make sure that you open your hearts, maybe go grab a notebook and jot some of these tips down, because I know Mateo's going to share from his heart. Right. And it is a work of the Lord when you see Mateo with students, because students respond to him. He is very open and loving with them, and at the same time demands, no, demands maybe is not the right word. He expects the very best of the student, and I think that they feel that. They know that he's not lowering the standards, he's raising the standards. He's saying, you have greatness in you that God has given you. We're going to honor that Imago Dei within you, and God has a plan for you. So rise to the occasion, like Dr. Antipas Harris says, rise to the call. And so that's what today's show is all about.
So if you have a student who's that close to quitting, they need to watch this show. So you need to grab them and say, come here, you need to watch. You're going to be encouraged. This show is for you.
And you know, sometimes parents get that phone call from school, from a college student that is a son or a daughter that says, I don't belong here. Or I don't know what to do. And it's so easy to say, well, just come on home. But we want to give them more than that. We want to point them back to the Lord. So that's what this show is about. We certainly want to jump into this interview because we're so thrilled that Mateo's with us. Let me tell everybody a little bit more about you. You're internationally known, a community servant leader. I've gotten to see that firsthand, and speak to a wide spectrum of audiences throughout the Northern Hemisphere on breaking down boundaries, activating your purpose, and defying the urge to quit on one's pursuit to higher education. Those are magnificent thoughts. Break that down for us. What does that, how does that play out in the student's life who's really struggling, who's saying, what's my purpose? I want to quit because I'm just tired. What do you tell them?
So thank you both for having me on the show, and I hope that today would just not be just another segment, but also something that can really change our lives, and very practical steps. So I think in breaking this down, students are our focus. We always say how students are the center of everything that we do, but we never mention them. So today I want to mention them. I want to mention what my students have taught me as I've traveled from China to Colombia to Mexico, Honduras, and everywhere. I'm reminded of the first lesson that one of the first lessons that my student taught me. One is to listen. Sometimes we stop listening, and we say we're helping them, we're doing it for you, but have we taken the time to really get to know them? And do we know what makes them, what's their passion, what are they passionate about? And so in one of these, I decided to bring some of my students with special needs. So after we did, we call them the activation rally, I asked to speak to students that are gifted with special needs. And so we had a room in the library, about 60 students, and many of them had different challenges. Some were in wheelchairs, some of them were deaf, some of them just had different learning styles. So I was telling these young people, I said, thank you for being my inspiration, young people. Thank you for inspiring me to be better. And this young lady who was deaf raised her hand, and just like this look on her face, just confused. She was like, "Sir, how do we inspire you, Mr. Magdaleno? Look at us, look around. We're the crippled, we're the kids that nobody ever wants to have lunch with. Look at us, we're the unwanted at the school. What do you mean kids like me inspire you?" So she was telling me this in sign language, and there was an interpreter right beside me interpreting for me. And it was one of those moments that just change your life.
Yeah.
And I said, "You inspire me because you work with what you have left."
That's good.
And I think sometimes as human beings, we're so focused on what we don't have.
That's right.
We focus, oh, I didn't have a dad, or I'm poor, or whatever it is.
I don't have a good car, I don't have a nice house, or I don't have new clothes. I mean, you name it. Right?
You name it. Every excuse of why we can't go get our education.
Right.
And here are these 60-plus students teaching me that you work with what you have.
Amen.
And if you don't have one leg, you work your good leg, baby. If you can't speak, you learn how to speak with your hands.
Man,
And so they started doing something in sign language that just messed me up. And then she started doing this. Actually, do y'all mind doing this with me? So exactly. Well, what is this?
Yeah.
What am I doing? What am I doing? I want to make sure I want to make sure what I'm doing.
That's okay.
So is this okay? So yes, I said the same thing. I'm like, when I saw them started to do this in sign language, it messed me up. I'm like, okay, did I offend them? I got real nervous. I said, lady interpreter, did I say something wrong? And so what the students were telling me were saying, "Work it, baby. Work it, baby." And so that is the first lesson that I want to leave our audience. You got to learn how to work it, baby. You got to work with what you have, whatever it is. And God has an amazing way of showing us anytime that he does something, when he takes something away, it probably means that you didn't need it anyways.
Right.
And but he never leaves us without.
Right.
He never leaves us without. And so for me, in my life, and all of us will probably have a testimony of how we thought we were in the worst times, but God left something.
Yep.
God left something. And sometimes, Dr. Reyes, you talked about hope. Sometimes that's all we have left is hope. You know what?
Hope's good.
Hope is amazing, and we can't let it die.
Oh, no.
We can't let it die. And so lessons learned from my students. And then the second thing that I've learned just in life is the importance of being grateful. Always being grateful, because depression cannot exist when you have a heart full of great gratitude.
Wow.
It can come and visit, but it can't stay.
Wow.
It cannot stay. And so for me,
That's a good one.
it's just living in a constant state of gratitude. Yes, God, today I may not have this, but you said, consider pure joy, my brothers, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And at first I didn't know what that scripture meant until you lived through something.
That's right.
Woo!
That's right.
When you say, God, thank you for allowing me to live through this situation, because I would have never understood you had I not been through it myself. And so when you live in a constant state of gratitude, God, thank you for what I do have. You know what, God, thank you for and even if you don't have it, just thank him for it anyways.
That's right.
God, thank you that you provided. Thank you that you made me
It's
more.
hard to be depressed if you're thanking.
And
Yeah,
because sometimes
exactly.
you don't know what he's doing. And I think it just, as you were speaking, I was reminded about Corrie ten Boom. You know, she was in the concentration camps, and so she lived through the Holocaust. And she tells a story about how the women in their camp, it's not just any camp, but so she tells a story about how they had fleas, and how initially she was so angry about having fleas, but then she was reminded of that verse in James, and the Lord said, thank me, and later on found out that they were not being harassed by the guards and were not being violated because they had fleas, and the guards didn't want the fleas. So what seemed like it was harm, God raised it up to bless them, and it was all a part of the protection. So when she said thank you, it was strictly out of obedience to say, thank you, Father, not knowing that God was providing and protecting the way that he does. And I just wonder how many times when we get to glory, when the Lord's going to show us this that you thought was just the worst thing, this is what I was doing there. This is how I was providing, because I am provider. This is how I was protecting, because I am protector. Because sometimes we go through things and we think, where'd you go? Where are you, Lord? But he is there and he's providing. And so listening to them, rock it, babe, work it, baby.
You got to learn how to work it, baby.
And then
be thankful.
Be thankful.
When
Absolutely.
you think about challenges that you hear from students, what are the common challenges that pop up that you feel like parents need to know about? And what advice would you give to parents about how to rebuttal some of those, or how to encourage through when their students hit those places where they feel really discouraged?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we have to do with not only our young people, but I think just in general, right? Parents need to become the example that they want to see in their children.
It's good.
And just like you have been an example to your daughter, Dr. Reyes, and to me,
thank you.
You have been a role model and somebody that I aspire to be like one day. So it's so surrounding your son or daughter with positive role models, including yourself, because they're always observing you, parents. They are always looking at you, and whether they show it or not, you are their greatest role model. And for those that have not been blessed with great role models, I think, I've realized that when I speak to some students is that sometimes broken parents give birth to broken kids.
Sure.
And how do you stop that cycle? How do we stop that cycle? And it begins with us. And I'll give you a prime example of that. My mother, when I went back to college, she said, you are not leaving me behind, mijo. I'm going right there with you, and I'm going to go get my education. And so she was 62 years old when she decided to go to learn to read and write.
Wow.
Because my mother was she was illiterate because of her circumstances. She said, I'm not going to let that stop me. And so she became like, wow, education not only impacts your life, but your family and your community. So that is one thing, is you are your parents, you are your children's first leader.
Wow.
Your leader. You are the leader. You are their leader. So be an example to them. It's not necessarily, I heard this when I was in Mexico, that they said one example is greater than 1,000 sermons.
How about that?
Oh, because
that's right.
If you live it, baby, you don't have to say a word. You are a walking, living testimony of what God is able to do. And so and then another thing is helping people find their purpose in life. You have to, and all of us. And sometimes our purpose changes daily sometimes, but there's our overarching purpose. And what I've learned from our students is what really helps them is giving back to their community and the importance of getting them involved in something meaningful, because as they're giving, they end up finding something about themselves. And because many of them are so lost, they're like, what is my purpose? And it is very sad that throughout the entire country and around the world, we have kids as young as 12, 11 years old committing suicide. And to have a parent walk into a room and seeing your child 11 years old that said, I have nothing else to live for.
Wow.
And this mother who had to see her child hanging from the restroom, the bar in the restroom. It was extremely difficult just hearing this mother saying that, what happened to my baby? I didn't even know that they were going through things. But I believe if we begin to pray over, number one, pray over our babies. Say, devil, you cannot have my child. I think sometimes we underestimate the power of prayer. Y'all, prayer still works. It works today, and oh man, and so praying and speaking positive, and I think sometimes as parents, we're so, I can't imagine what it's like to be a parent that sometimes you've had a really difficult day, and sometimes we take it out on the people that we love the most. and we come and we speak negative things, and our kids have just been through
they've
school.
had a tough day too.
They had a tough day too.
Tough day all around.
Yep. Yes, they have. And so when we come home, is leaving those things behind us, and really just saying, God, I cast all of my worries on you. I surrender it because I can't bring this home. Because my child, my words matter, whether we think so or not. Because all of our babies go through a rebellion stage.
Right,
Woo, sometimes we just want to choke them.
And our words become their internal talk. It's what they hear when they're later on.
It's playing over and over and over
later on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So our words matter. Our words matter.
What do we want that tape to say?
Yes, that is a question that we all have to ask ourselves. So let's help them find their purpose at that stage of their life, and let's teach them the importance of giving back, and that is going to make a world of difference for them.
I just love the giving back. I love what you said too about the relationship between gratitude and depression, because Pastor Reverend Sam Rodriguez talks about where there is light always trumps darkness. And depression is a piece where we are, there are different elements to depression, but when you have gratitude, it opens something up, and it does, it activates something even within our brain that is powerful, and we need to be reminded of that as well. Well, we want you to know what's happening across the United States, how you can get involved. We are connecting university leaders and church leaders, pastors, denominational leaders, and connecting